Hello, my name is Chima from GETTER Excel, and today we will be talking about value added tax, otherwise known as VAT. Some call it VAT. In Nigeria, VAT is a tax, a consumption tax that is filed on the 21st day of the following month, where the duty to deduct VAT arise. Before I continue, I must tell you that I am a chartered accountant and a chartered tax consultant. And so I can tell you something about Nigerian tax system. Okay, so VAT is a consumption tax and not an income tax. And so it's also called an indirect tax because when VAT is deducted from a taxpayer, it is not done directly to his income, but indirectly to his consumption. Now, this is different from withholding tax, which is an advance deduction of your income tax. So this is one clear difference between the withholding tax and the VAT. So there are similarities between the withholding tax and the VAT. For example, in the template, you can see some similarities. If you have watched the withholding tax lecture, you will see some similarity between the withholding tax template and the VAT. One noticeable similarity is the date of filing. Both withholding tax and VAT in Nigeria are filed on or before the 21st day of the following month, following the duty to deduct these taxes arise. If you file later than that 21st, then you will pay a penalty. So it means that if you have a transaction done in January 2023, you must file VAT on or before February 21st, 2023. And that's the same date you file withholding tax in Nigeria. And so we want to assume that you will not fall victim to filing late. And one of the things that this template is going to teach us now is if to create this template in such a way that the due date for filing this tax will always be there and it cannot be changed. I got a question from someone who watched the video of withholding tax, and he said, is it possible that the due date is fixed in such a way that if you are going to file or going to create your template, you're going to be seeing the due date always? I say, yes, it can. And I can make it in such a way that it will not change. So someone will not mistakenly look at it that the due date could be changed from 21 to 28 or maybe 21 to 15. Okay, so now let's go into the nitty-gritty of how to create this template. First of all, let me explain this template. This is the taxpayer's name. Now, the taxpayer could be company or it could be in an individual. The taxpayer type It's either company or individual. But note here that the taxpayer type is really not important in VAT because all VAT goes to the federal government. But for the sake of completeness, we're going to still retain the taxpayer type. Now, the tax type is going to be either input VAT or output VAT. So we are going to be mixing them up here, but we're going to do a summary to extract the input VAT from the output VAT. Then we have the taxpayer TIN or payer ID. The TIN is really important here, not the payer ID, because since it is going to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the language they use is TIN. We're going to talk more about it. Then description of goods and services. We have some of the things here. We have vatable goods. We have vatable services. So it's either you are given a vatable goods or vatable services. Then anything under it are VAT exempt. So this is where we have our VAT exempt list, which will affect the rate of VAT. Okay, we'll come to that later. Right, so let's go to the date of supply. The date of supply is important because that is when the duty, okay, that's when the contract occurred and the duty to deduct VAT arose. The rate is influenced by the description of goods and services, and we're going to be linking them together. The invoice amount is going to be inputted by the person computing or creating this template. The VAT charge will be created by formula, the gross amount by formula, and the date of payment. Now, the date of payment will also be important because if the duty to deduct VAT happened, let's say, in December 2022, and nothing was paid, you cannot deduct VAT in February because nothing was paid as at when the duty to deduct VAT occurred in December. Now, if nothing was paid in December and part of it or all of it was paid in January, that means the VAT being treated on cash basis is remitted to the government in February. So even though the duty to deduct VAT occurred in December, if nothing was paid in December, you cannot file the VAT in January. If something was paid in January instead of December, you can file the VAT in February. So that point is noted. Now, another thing between date of supply and date of payment is this. Now, when the VAT changed, because there is a change of VAT from 5% to 7.5%, that's one of the difference between withholding tax and VAT. Withholding tax, you saw different rates. Sometimes you see 5%, you see 10%, you see 3%, and all that. And you also saw 0%. Or with withholding, but with VAT, we only have 5% before February 1, 2020. The VAT exempt items, of course, 0%. Then from February 1, 2020, the VAT became 7.5%. And so let's assume that we are in 2020 and the duty to deduct VAT arose in January 2020. You see, it will be at 5%, even though payment was made in February. Let's say payment was made in February. You will not say because payment was made in February, you will not charge 7.5%. No, the duty to deduct VAT occurred in January when VAT was 5%. And so even though you pay the VAT in January or February, you will deduct 5%. But if the duty to deduct came in February 2020, then you will now, use the 7.5%. So that's what we are going to be doing now. Now look at the vatable services. We have vatable goods, vatable services. Now from medical products, medical pharmaceutical products, and all that. All these are vatable goods. Okay, come in, check something here. Okay, I think I'm going to bring this down here. Let me copy this down to this place here. Do it again. All right, so this is it. So we have our VAT goods and services. So I decided to make it bold here to show that this is VAT exempt goods, starting from medical pharmaceutical products to medical, okay, then here it's supposed to be VAT exempt services, starting from medical services down here. Okay, so you see the rates here, they're all 0%, all 0%, but here these two are 5%. It is good. So 5%. Now you can see the date. January 1, 2020, January 31, 2020 was the last date in which the 5% regime was enjoyed. February 1, 2020 was the first day in which the new regime of 7.5% of VAT was enjoyed. So this is important because we're going to be using these dates in our formula. Then we have our VAT input, VAT type, input VAT and output VAT. We have our taxpayer type, which we use in the formula. We have our type, company type. We have our character. This is what we did the last time. So we are going to be doing something similar to that. Then we have the taxpayer ID. Okay, so what I will do now is I will insert something like this. I will insert something like this here. I will call it taxpayer type. Let me use the name from here, taxpayer type. I will prefer to do it here and bring it in. All right. So let's start. Let's fill in the blanks. Now, you are given taxpayers and their team. So let me remove the taxpayer ID and just leave it as team. Okay, let me do the same here and call it team. All right, so I'll go back and let's do what we are supposed to do. Now, how do we get our taxpayer type? We'll come back again here and use a formula. The formula will be if open a bracket, logical test. Now, remember when we did or withholding tax, we watched the video, we are doing something similar. So we're using the right function. If right Open a bracket again. Which text am I interested in? Because it's asking for two arguments, text and number of characters. So the text I'm interested in is this, 22. Z2, rather. If this Z2, a comma is also needed, number of characters. Now the number of characters I need is 3. So let me take this 3 from here. Okay, I can decide to write 3 if I want to. So let me just use, this time let me write it 3, number of characters, close the bracket. Okay, if this gives me, instead of clicking on PLC, I can write it here, but I'm going to use the hard coding by writing it by starting with a quotation mark, PLC. So when you are writing a string character, you put it in a quotation mark. So I can decide to write it as PLC. I can decide to remove all of these and just click PLC now without a string or commas. Okay, so let me use PLC. So we'll get a different flavor from what we did with the withholding tax. So I will write PLC, value if true. Value if true, I will just choose company. I will make it stick by using F4. If I don't want to do that, but I prefer doing that because there's a possibility you could spell the company wrongly. But let me use, since I'm doing all hard coding, open a quotation mark and type company. Company. Close the quotation. So that's a value if true, comma, value if false. Value if false, I will iterate out, go to the next line. If, write again, open a bracket, Z2, comma, 3, close the bracket, equal to limited, LTD, LTD, comma, I want to return company, comma, value if false, go down again, if, open a bracket, write, open another bracket, Z2, comma, now instead of writing 3, I want to use this limited. I can now say 7. Close the bracket, equal to, open a comma, a quotation sign, type the word limited. Make sure you are typing the correct thing, right? Close the quotation mark, comma, let it give me company. Sorry, company. See, I will need to put it in quotation mark. I didn't put it from the beginning. If I fail to put that quotation mark, the Excel will tell me it's an error. Now, value if false, and I will now go down again. If right, open a bracket, Z2, comma, 3, close the bracket. Now, what am I going to do with this? I want a situation where if I check the 3 rightmost letters, rightmost characters of this name of taxpayer, and it is not equal to, so this is a sign of not equal to. You see the greater than or less than, it means it's not equal to LTD, Ltd. Close the bracket, then close the quotation. Now, value if true, I will use the word individual. Right? Individual, make sure you spell it well. Close the quotation. Value if false. I can put empty or blank cell. Then I'll close it the first one, as close the bracket the first time, close the second time, close the third time, and the last one. Hit enter and you have individual. That's fine because this is an individual and I can hold it here and drag down to the end and it gives me what I want. Individual, company, company. Now imagine I drag down, it's giving me individual, okay? So it means that by default, okay, so I can come back here and say, if, open a bracket, this Z2 equal to blank, comma, give me a blank, comma, then I will come to the last part of my formula and close the bracket. And I'll hit enter, it gives me the same thing I want. I drag down, it gives me the same thing, but watch, when I drag down, it's giving me blank. So it means that if I don't fill anything here, nothing should be here. I don't want individual to be there. I want it to be blank. That's fine. That's good. So we've achieved one thing with our workings. So what's the next thing to do? Let's fill them up. So what I would do now is whenever I put the taxpayer's name, this should appear, this should appear. So what I would do here is if, open a bracket, this place here is equal to blank, comma, return a blank. Otherwise, do an X lookup. X lookup, open a bracket. My lookup value will be this thing here, name of taxpayer, comma, lookup array will be here. My lookup array will be here. Okay. Let me just use this whole line to be my lookup array. Fine. And let me lock it F4, comma, then my return array. I want it to return the taxpayer type. So I can just come here and put my cursor on AA and just click the whole of this column and lock it F4. That's fine. So I'm going to close the bracket now. Then I'm going to close the bracket again. And here we have it. So it's showing you blank because this is blank. This formula has affected everything here. I can take this same formula and come to this side, copy it here, take it to thin, paste it. The only thing that's going to change, instead of AA, is going to be AB, because that is where our thin is located, AB. Just change it to AB and I hit enter. And if I go and verify if the thin is in AB, and there is it, our thin is in AB. All right, so we've done, we've set one formula. Everything now is working. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now is we're going to be looking for due dates. Let's start with the date of filing. The date of filing, let's assume you are filing it today. So the day you are preparing your template is the day we assume you are filing. So we'll use the today's date function. So we'll start today to give you today's date. The same thing if you use now, but the difference between now and today is we expand it to give you the time, exact time. So what I would do, either I use today or I use now, I'm going to change this format. Control 1. Control 1 will give me the format cell. I'll go to date. I want to choose United Kingdom because that is how we follow the United Kingdom date filing, date nomenclature, and I want to choose this. I want it to be showing me the month name. Now, I want the month name to be 3 letters. I want the month to be first, followed by the date, then a comma, and the year. I'll go to custom, and I will do it that. I will come to this beginning. Let me remove one of the M and still go down, and I have Feb 2023. I'll bring my cursor near the YYYY, and I will put DD. Let me make it small letters. DD. Showing me February 25, comma, and a space. This is the way I want my date formatted. And I will just hit the OK button and I'm done. Now, this is my date format. I will copy this format and I'll take it down here, Control Alt V, and I will click on Format. Means that my date will be formatted that way. I'll take it down to date of supply. I will copy and Control Alt V, format. My date will be formatted that way. Okay. I will come here and go to date of payment. Control Alt V, format. Okay. And notice these thick lines here. I'll come back here and make them normal lines. Come back here, make them normal grid lines. And that's fine. The next thing I'm going to do now is the due date. The due date. Okay. Now, if I am going to be filing a tax for February, in February, the due date should be February 21. So how will I achieve this? And that's something I'll say for later now. So let's come here. Which month are we filing it for? Okay, so we're going to start. Let's look at the month function. We'll say equal to month serial number is showing me 2. I like this. Assuming I use the end of month function, I will say month, EO month, open a bracket, start date. The date in which we are filing is our start date. Months that we are looking for, let's assume that we are using this month. I will simply say 0. Then I'll come here, close the bracket, hit enter. I still get 2. But you see, I want everything, all my dates, to be referencing my date of filing. And I want to assume that when you're filing for January's VAT, you must do it within February and not extend it to March. That's the assumption here. That's only how this will work. Okay, so this is today, February 25, and here is 2. Now, I want to change it. The thing here is I want to change it to be reading the previous month and not the current month. So instead of 0 here, I will put -1, and it will give me 1. That's fine. Now I have achieved 1 here. So what do I do next? I don't want it to be 1. I want it to be January. So let's see if we have our month and date. We don't have it. Let's create it now. So let's come here and say month number. Month number. We have month name. Month name. All right. So we have 1, 2. I can drag to 12. All right. Then I want to put the names complete, and I want them to be in capital letters. January. Let's see what will happen if I drag. It's going to work till December. That's fine. That's cool. So we'll go back to our format. Now, whenever I see 1, I want to return January. So how do I do it? I will use either VLOOKUP, index of and match, or my XLOOKUP. So because I am promoting the fact that we should all have the latest version of Excel, I'm going to be using the XLOOKUP. So I will come to the beginning of this formula and I will say XLOOKUP. Then I will open a bracket. It's asking for lookup value. My lookup value would be all the things I have done prior to when I wrote VXLOOKUP. I'll come to the end here and put a comma. It now moves to the next argument, my lookup array. My lookup array is going to be what we just did now, the workings. I'm going to be looking from here down here. I'm going to lock it with F4. That's fine. Comma. My return array is going to be the next column. I'm going to go from here and hit to the end, lock it with F4. That's good. Close the bracket, and what happens? It becomes January. That's fine. So assuming this -1 here was 0, it will return February. If this 0 happens to be +1 or just 1, it will return March. That's what I want to achieve. So I'll go back to -1 because we want to be referencing the previous month as the month of transactions that we are reporting in the current month. Now that's fine. Now I want to put year and month together. So I'll come here. After doing the month, I will come to the end of the formula and I will use my ampersand sign, which is an and symbol, and I will put a quotation mark, I'll put a space, close the quotation mark. Okay, that is to achieve a space. Then I'll use the and sign again, and I'll use the year function. Open the bracket. I want to take my year from here. Use B10. Close the bracket. Hit enter. I have January 2023. All I need to do is make it bold, and I'm good. All right, we are done. Now what happens? Let's look at the due date. How will my due date be? What will my due date be? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we want to achieve this kind of lettering. We want to achieve this kind of lettering. Okay, so let's see. Due dates, we want to start with the month. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take everything here, copy it, escape, bring it down here. Okay, all we will need to do is, instead of -1, we are going to be using 0. Okay. Then we are going to I didn't copy the whole formula I'm supposed to copy. I'm supposed to copy everything down before this and. Okay. Copy, escape, come down here, paste it. The only thing I'm going to do here is to change this -1 to 0 so that it will be referencing the current month. Hit enter. Wow, I didn't put equal to, sorry. Hit enter and I'm getting February. That's one thing I want to achieve. Now the next thing I want to achieve is the due date. Then I will say this is, I'll use my and button. Then I'll put a space. Then I'll use my and again. Now the next thing is the date. The date. How will I achieve to get 21? Always written down here. Now once again, I'm going to be using the EO month option, the EO month formula. Now this is so interesting. So I'm going to put a bracket here and I will say EO month, open a bracket. My start date is going to be this. I'm going to take my start date from this date I want to be referencing always, comma, number of months. Now look at what I'm going to be doing. Remember, if I put -1, right, I am going to be getting the end of month of the previous day, the previous month. What I mean is this. We are in February, and if I put -1 using the end of month formula, it's going to be giving me January 31st. It's going to give me 31st as my answer. I don't want that. Okay, just watch. Let me close the bracket to give me 31st. Wow, that's something. That's something. Okay, that's something. All right. But what I want to do now is I'll come here and I will say plus 21. Wow, giving me something. All right. Let's look at it the other way, another way. I can come here. Okay. I can come here. How do we solve this now? How do we solve this? Okay, so let's come here and do something like this. EO months. EO months. Open a bracket here. Start date is this, right? Number of months, I put -1. I close the bracket and I put plus 21, gives me February 21, 2023. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to do here. So let's do it now. Instead of doing all this I did before, let's do it again. EO months, open a bracket. I will click here because I've already set the format that it should be showing me the month and the date like the way I have it here. So EO month, I click on this, right? Start date is this. Number of months, I'm going to choose the previous month. I'll say -1. When I close it, it should be giving me January 31. Normally, it should be giving me January 31. But if I add, the essence of January 31 is when I know the last date of the previous month, I can always add 21 to it. That's it, February 21. Fine. Now, I can decide to format this alone another way. I'll come here, alignment, and go to date format. I'll go to custom. Okay, let me go to date, and I can see what happened here. I can go to custom. Sorry. Let me touch the right thing. All right. Go to date. Yeah. Go to custom. Let me choose date again. Let me go to custom. Move all of this here. I can come here and I put DD space, comma space. Then I hit the enter button. I can decide to, let's make it like this. Okay, hit the enter button and I get something like this. If I want it to be all capital letters, I can come here and say upper, open a bracket, everything here, close the bracket. Wow. So it makes sense to leave it at lower, makes sense to leave it that way. So let's not try to smart. February 21, 2023. I can make it to align this way. So you see the value added tax for the month of, let's make it a different color. Okay, then let's look at our due date. Let's give it a different color. Okay, this color is not too good for me. Let's give it this color. Now look at the date of filing. Now, if you file late, how will you know if you have done a late filing? Now, let's see. We'll say if this date here is greater than this date, comma, late filing. Late filing. Otherwise, what should I use here? Let me just put a blank. Close it. This is a late filing. So because you are filing late, you are filing later than the due date, it's telling you a late filing. Assuming that you filed 5 days ago, it shows you blank. Can decide to write something else. I can decide to put here early filing. Early filing. It's your own choice. Early filing. Then if it is later than that, late filing. Now that's fine. It's up to you. So we've done something. Now let's come to our taxpayer. All I'll be doing here is I'll just copy the taxpayer name. Let me just copy a few. Let me copy up to this one here and take it straight to our work. Control Alt V and paste the values. And what happens? We find out that the taxpayer's ID, the taxpayer TIN, and taxpayer type all appear automatically. So that's fine. That's what we want to achieve. All right. So the next thing to do here is let's assume Okay, let's create this thing once again. Let's create our drop down button here. The VAT type, we can come here and go to data validation. I'm going to create it again. I'm going to use data. Something blocking this, so I'm coming, let me remove it. So I'm going to use data, go to this data, then I'll come down here, data validation, and I want a list, and I want my source to be either input or output. Close my source here, enter. So it's giving me a list. So I can decide to come here and say this is an output VAT, this is an output VAT again, this is an input VAT, this is an input VAT, this is input VAT, or let's say output VAT. All right. If you notice here that whenever I change anything, this date keeps changing. It's because I'm using the formula now. But if I change it to today, that will not happen. So, I'll need, so you see here, once the date is not correct, it affects this date here, affects this date here, affects everything. What I didn't do right, I didn't put equal to, and now it will correct itself. All right, so let me use today. Now, description of goods and services. Now, let's leave that side now. Date of supply, I will also leave that. I will come to the rate. The rate will be influenced by the description of service and the date of supply. So we are going to be using two kinds of formula. We are going to be using the AND formula. The AND formula. Okay? We can also use the AND formula. Let's see the rate. We say if, okay, we can also use, instead of the AND formula, we can use the lookup formula. We can use the lookup formula. All right. So we say if, just the if function, if the date of supply is lesser or equal, okay, let's say if it is blank, if the date of supply is blank, return a blank, comma, if, let me take it down, if the date of supply is lesser or equal to this date here, January 31, 2020, I will lock it F4, right? Comma, what should I do? I should do a B lookup or X lookup. I will say X lookup. What am I looking for? I'm looking for description of services here. Okay, my lookup array is going to give me, a lookup array is going to give me this here, from here down, lock it with F4. have to lock it with F4. All right. Then my return array is going to give me from here down here, lock it with F4. All right. Close the bracket. Okay. Comma. Value if false, I'll go down again. If the date of supply is greater or equal to February 1, 2020, lock it F4, comma, we do an X lookup, open the bracket. What am I looking for? Description of services, comma, my lookup array is going to give me from here, this here, down here, lock it F4, then my return array is going to give me returning the next line from here down, lock it with F4. Okay, close the bracket, comma. So that is my value if true. Now value if false, let me just get a blank. Close the bracket, close the bracket, close the bracket the last time, hit enter, and I get blank. All right, so that's it. Now we'll come to that, fill things in there. All right, so invoice amount is you going to be inputting the values. VAT charged. The VAT charge, we say if the rate here is blank, return blank. I don't want an error. Otherwise, if you have an error, you can use the if error to correct it. But if this rate is blank, return blank. Otherwise, you multiply your rate times amount on invoice. Close the bracket and you're done. So it gives you blank for now. Gross amount receivable is going to give me invoice amount plus VAT. That's it. You have. So now I can use the if error to correct. In this case, when I did VAT charge, I didn't use the if error. I can use the if error in that case, but I just wanted to use two different ways of correcting this error. If error, come here, comma, blank, close the bracket, and it solves my problem. So now let's go now and put description of items. Now let's see. This could be vatable goods. This one could be vatable service. This one could be basic food item. Okay, no, let's say this maybe, yeah, let's say this exported goods. This could be basic food items, and this could be medical services. This could be medical services. All right, so let's see what will happen. Our rate is not showing, but let's see what will happen to our date of supply. Now, for the sake of lecture, let's assume that we are filing for the year 2020. And let's assume that we are doing this for the month of March. Let's just assume that this is the month of March. So I can just say how do I achieve this? I can minus 365, that will take me to 2022, minus 365, that will take me to 2021, minus 365. Good. Now let's assume that this is okay. Let me add 30 days more. Let it be that I'm filing for February. No, let me make it 60 days more. Let it be I was filing for the month of March. Okay, I'm filing VAT for the month of March and I'm doing it in April. Okay, let's assume that this is not a late filing. Okay, let's leave it at late filing, no problem. All right, so let's assume here that the date of supply happened to be, you have to start with the month first, December 23, 2020. Watch, it's giving me 7.5. And there's a problem because it's supposed to give me a problem here. We'll look at this formula again. Look at this formula again. I'll start again. If the date of supply is less than or equal to January 31, 2020. Let me lock it F4. I will do an X lookup. Open the bracket. I'm going to be checking here, comma. I'm going to be looking out for these here. Okay, lock it, comma. My return array is going to give me here, down, lock it, comma. Okay, instead of comma, I'm going to close the bracket first, comma, value if false. Hit enter button. If, open a bracket, is date here is greater, let's say it's greater. I don't want to use greater or equal to. Something is blocking me from moving. Greater than this December, January 31st is greater than this here. Sorry, it should be O1, not N1. O1. And let me lock it with F4, comma. Oh, sorry. O1. Let me lock it with F4, comma. Value if, okay. Then what are we going to do? Value if true. I'll do an X lookup. One X lookup. I could even have avoided all of these. instead of doing all these other if, I'll just put my value if false. Value if false, I'll just do an X lookup. X lookup, open a bracket. My lookup value will be here, comma. I'm still going to look at all of these. Copy it here. Move one of these. Then I'm still going to copy this, but I'll change it from O to P. From O to P. So that's the next column. P. P. Okay. Close the bracket. That's the value if false. Then I'll also close the bracket and I'll come here and I'll do if error. Open a bracket. Come here, comma, blank, close the bracket, hit F4, still giving me 7.5. All these are giving me 5%. Okay. And come here and say, instead of doing this way, I can do my if date of supply come here again and say if date of supply is greater than this date. Let me copy this date. Comma. I'll do this X lookup, blah blah blah. Close the bracket here. Still giving me 7.5. I'm going to find out why it is so. Okay, let me say this is 2023. See what will happen with 20. Okay, it's 20. I'm going to do this formula again. Let's do this formula again. Equal to if this date of supply, if it is less than, let me use less than February P1, comma, I should do an X lookup. Sometimes we need to do try and error. Our lookup value is this here, comma. Our lookup array is going to give me this here down to the end here, comma. Return array is going to give me this here. I don't expect to see 7.5 here. Okay. Close the bracket, comma. So if it is false, that means this here, if it is false, what should happen? What should happen if it is false? X lookup, open a bracket. We're going to be looking for this. Then we are going to be looking out here. F4. Then we are going to be looking out here. F4. Close the bracket. I want to start with the situation if there is blank there. If here is equal to blank, give me a blank, comma. If, then we have it here, then I will close the bracket, hit enter. I am still getting my 7.5, showing me that the formula has something that is happening here. 7.5. Okay, for now, let me change it here. We'll come back and fix all of this. Let's change all these dates here to today. Okay, it goes with 7.5, that's fine. Let me make this 2022. Let's make this one here January 24, 23. Then we have January 25, 23. Good. It's giving me the 0 I wanted. January 26, 3, and January 27, 3. That's fine. Invoice amount, let's say this is 1 million. It's 100,000. Let me make it one more 0 to make it 1 million. This is 2 million. It's 20 million. Okay, let's leave it that way. So this is 10 million. That's 30 million. This is 10 million. This is another 10 million. This is another 10 million. That's for me. So our date of payment, let's assume that we decide to pay all of them. The date they all paid happen to be the same day. It will be different dates. Let's say they all paid on January 15th. So that's the reason why we are bringing them. But okay, let's say they come all like this, one day interval. That's fine. So now you see here that your VAT charged is small because these two are VATable. So what do? Let's bring our summary of VAT. See, some of them are output VAT, some of them are input VAT. Okay, so let me change this one here to exported goods. Let me change this one back to exported goods. Let me change this one to VATable goods. Let me change this one to VATable service. Okay. All right, so let's leave it that way. All right. So all right, so let's come here. What do we do here? Our gross revenue, VAT inclusive. We're going to be doing a sum ifs. So we're going to be summing our gross revenue. What's our gross revenue? It's the gross amount we received. We sum all here, sum ifs. We start from here to here. Put it with F4. That's good. Comma. Criteria range 1. criteria range 1. Criteria range 1 will be all these VAT type. Call it with F4. Criteria 1. What's our criteria? Our criteria will be output VAT. So let's hold this one with F4. So all the output VAT is going to be adding them for us. Close the bracket. Wow. Okay. Let's mix up here. Sum if. Okay. Sum if the sum value is what's wrong here. I was going to be summing from this amount down to this amount. Okay. Okay, I'm supposed to have removed this. Okay, I'll do it again. Sum ifs, come here, down here. All right. I'll take it again. Sum ifs, open a bracket, gross amount here, down here. Hold it with F4, comma, criteria range 1 from here, down here. Hold it with F4, criteria 1. Criteria 1 going to give me output VAT. Lock F4, close the bracket, and it gives me what I want. So gross amount is, if I add up all the output VAT that I have, so the output VAT that I have is this, and this. So it's going to be this first two numbers, okay? First two numbers and the last. So if I hold them up, touch them together, look at it down here, I'm getting 40,750,000. That's what it gave me here. All right, so what is the value exempt from VAT? Those output VAT that are exempt, how will I get that? I will start again. Sum ifs, open a bracket. What is my sum range? This gross amount receivable, okay? 4, comma, criteria range 1, going to be the same thing I did, okay? Criteria range 1 is the same thing I did, comma, criteria 1 is going to be the output VAT. Put it with F4 again. So I'm going to add another criteria range 2. Criteria range 2 is going to give me the rate here. Criteria range 2 is going to give me rate. Lock it with F4. Criteria 2, I want it to be 0%. So I can go here and just click on any of the 0%. I can call it 04. 04. And I'll lock it with F4. I'll close the brackets. Wow. 04. 04. Lock it with F4. Then I'll close the brackets. Hit enter. It shows me that 30 million were exempt. So let's see what makes the 30 million exempt. This was, okay, no, this was exempt, and uh, this was also exempt. So these are the two things that were exempt, 30 million. This up one here is a vatable item. All right, so what do we do here? We gross revenue less tax exempt items. We will not say it's equal to sum, or you can simply say this here minus this gives you the gross item less revenue, gross revenue less tax exempt item. So it's only one item here that we know had this figure. Then our output VAT, there are two ways we can calculate the output VAT. Okay, so we can do it this way and say is equal to sum ifs, sum ifs, sum ifs, open a bracket, our VAT charge is going to be I3 to I7. Okay, I'm going to hit it with F4 and lock it. That's the sum range. Criteria range 1 is going to be here, comma, criteria 1 is going to be this output VAT. Lock it with F4, close the bracket, 750. So that's one way of calculating it. So it means here that it's just this one that was calculated. That's the 750. Another way of doing it here is come here, do the second way, equal to 7.5 divided by 100 multiplied by this amount. Wow, it's giving me a different figure. A different figure, so that's way wrong. But this right. Of course, if I have to do 7.5 divided 7.5% of 100, okay, could it be that something is wrong with the calculation? Seven point five multiplied by 100. Okay. Okay, so that's the VAT here. Oh, okay, I get it. All right. So that's it. If we have to do this is the way to do the VAT input. All right. So the purchase, the output VAT or the input VAT, let's see, we'll say sum ifs, open a bracket, the sum range is still going to be the gross amount that you receive. VAT inclusive. So this is the amount you receive, VAT inclusive. Lock it, F4, comma, criteria range 1. Going to come here and lock again. Criteria 1 is going to be this. Lock. Close the bracket, hit it. So this is your purchases with VAT inclusive. Now let's look at the VAT exempt purchases equal to, okay, I think I'm still going to get everything here. Copy. But instead of closing the bracket, I'll go to criteria number 2. Criteria number 2 is going to give me from the rate. Come here now, go down, lock with F4, comma, then criteria 2, you can just pick any of the 0% here. Pick anyone here, lock it with F4, close it, and I hit the enter. 100,000 was the, let's investigate and see. So this was the, let's hide this for a moment. So this was the output VAT. This was the input VAT, 100,000. Then the one that was also exempted was 100,000. So 200,000 was the gross, 100 was exempted, and 100 was filed. Okay, so let's bring back the hidden cell. Okay, so let's come back. So what's going to be our gross purchases less tax exempt item? Just the way we did here, we're going to do here equals to this minus this one, right? So that's it. So what's going to be our input VAT? Input VAT is sum ifs, open a bracket, we go to the VAT corner, then we are going to look at criteria 1. Criteria 1, we'll come here, lock F4 again, criteria range 1 rather, but my criteria 1 is input VAT. Lock it again. All right, that's fine. All right, so we have 750. Now your VAT payable, I have a formula here. I will say, let's do it again, equal to if this output VAT, if it is greater or equal to the output VAT, comma, then you do the difference. It's going to be output VAT minus input VAT. Otherwise, just give me a blank. Close the bracket, and I have 0. Now, I can come here, VAT, net VAT receivable. I can say if, open a bracket, this is greater or equal to this, comma, do the division, do the difference, this, do the other way around, this minus this one. Otherwise, give me a blank. Close the bracket, and I have dash. All right, so let's see what would have happened if I had increased this one to like 20 million. All right, so find out that the VAT here has increased, and now we have something. VAT payable will be 750, VAT receivable will be 0. Assuming now here happened to be let's say this is 30 million. Find out that the receivable VAT, input VAT is higher, and what you'll be claiming as VAT receivable will be higher. So that's it on our VAT class today. If you have enjoyed this VAT class and followed this lecture with patience, progressively, you would have learned a lot of skills, how to use the date function, how to automate it, how to link your cells so that everything will be done in a dynamic way. Thank you so much for joining me in today's class. See you again in another class when I'll be bringing an exciting project for us to do together. Until I come your way again, my name is Chima from GETTER Excel. Thank you.